Morning done.
Morning done. So we're at our next post NABBA episode, fresh off of our experience last weekend with Mark Taylor here. A week later, so who knows what we've forgotten and how life has taken over afterwards, but also enough time to reflect on all the things that happened. So does anybody have anything interesting that they want to
So the
start
first
off
thing
talking
I
about?
want to bring up, yes, the first thing I want to bring up, because it's a shared experience between Mark and I, is that, okay, so there's a wonderful diner within walking distance of the Von Braun, and they're phenomenal. They get absolutely slammed every NABBA weekend. So I'm going to preface all of what I'm saying with loving things because I think they're great. However, that buffalo chicken wrap is like the LaCroix of buffalo chicken wraps. It's like somebody whispered buffalo chicken into the wrap, and then it was that. So that's my largest complaint of the weekend. So otherwise, I had a great time.
But
Wait,
Aaron,
Mark-
thank you for going to pick up lunch for us. That was
Whatever I can do to help y'all out. I'm never going to complain about being busy that weekend around like you guys. I'm not going to do it.
I was about to say, Mark, how did you get time to get off campus?
I never left the building either of the 2 days. It was wall to wall. I did have morning rehearsals with my bands on Friday and Saturday, but then once I entered the Von Braun Center, it was like a papal conclave, man. I wasn't leaving the building until the decisions were out. So yeah, but it was a great time. There were, as there always are with something this large and this complex, there were little hiccups that showed up along the way on Friday and on Saturday. But to the credit of all the people involved, the brass band of Huntsville had a great team in place. They had volunteers from their friends and family and community supporters. We had volunteers from NABBA bands who pitched in, and our NABBA board folks, and a team of, again, friends and family of those people. Everybody pitched in to try and help. People were stopping by our office throughout the day saying, "Hey, is there anything I can do to help?" And sometimes it took running around the building to find out what happened to the Crotales or whatever, but those things eventually got sorted out, and everybody I encountered seems to be having a magnificent time. Smiles on a lot of faces all throughout the weekend. It's just a great time. How can you not? It is a lot of work, of course it is, but how can you not just soak in all of that joy and that fellowship and fun? And it was a great weekend.
Yeah, I think most people really do, appreciate and understand that the whole purpose we're there is for those bands to perform. And that despite the fact that there's so many moving parts in order to make that happen in a reliable way, that, and so many small things, that every once in a while something small might happen, but we have people that were solving those problems and getting them resolved as quickly as possible. And at the end of the weekend, I think most people, had a good experience going through their part of the process in that. So I think, everybody most people left with a generally, good experience. It's sometimes for me, it's always been like I knew just about all of the things that went wrong. So it's kind of hard to separate yourself to the other side and be like, well, most of the people had no idea some of the things that went wrong. And some of us on the board know everything that went wrong. So we're just like, this is killing us, because we don't want anything to go wrong. And we plan the best that we can, but when you understand that there's 39 bands and 1,300 performers, that are there, it's, it's a lot. It's a lot. So, so I think that the slack that people give us, to make some mistakes and get them solved so that everyone's experience is good is definitely appreciated.
So this was the biggest NABBA yet, right?
Yeah. It was the largest NABBA and the largest second section or the largest section.
Yeah, the largest any section ever. Yeah. Yeah. 14 bands in second section. It was crazy.
I remember when NABBA was 14 bands.
Oh yeah.
Total.
My first year conducting a band at NABBA was 2014 in the third section, and there were 3 bands. So that's not even that long. I mean, that's 10 years ago.
Well, and also just the overall growth. I mean, it's been so great. I mean, for my brass band specifically, because we kind of are a good test product in terms of like that scoring system kind of came in exactly at the same time we came in. So we've only ever experienced that same thing. And to, you know, not like I was looking at the scores, and we got our first year, we got dead last, right? And I was looking at that section where that happened 3 years ago. And if you took our score, we got an 88 point something, I forget off the top of my head right now. But if you took that score that we got this year to that second section, we're third place. And it's crazy to not only see just the growth of the individual band, but also the growth of the section, not just in size, but in ability. Like I think the Macedon who won second got a 95 overall or something around those lines, right? So now it's, you know, the bands are rising as well.
I had the opportunity to, because our office is just right across the hall from the Playhouse stage door. So at various times, you know, I could just go and listen to some of those bands were just incredible. I mean, they sound like what first section bands sounded like, you know, 8, 10, 12 years ago. You know, it's just incredible, the growth and in musicianship, in technique, in artistry, in sound. It's exciting. It's exciting to hear those bands pushing the activity. And I would venture to say that you know, we all benefit from the lower sections pushing the boundaries of their repertoire and their performances. You know, keeps all of us on our toes.
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, and I think it is, you know, a testament to, you know, to your band, Aaron, to stay in the game and each year learn from that and get better every year. You know, it's like I think there is value to the idea of competition to get the best out of each band that participates in the process for it.
Oh, it's definitely the single most growth experience that we have. And it's evident whenever you have alumni come back, because, you know, like we had a certain person who came to our first NABBA with us who hasn't played with us since, and he had his first year with the Cincinnati brass band. And his first words with us coming off stage was like, "What a difference 2 years makes," and the growth of the competition. Because otherwise, you know, you, as much as great as they are and as serviceable as they are to the community, the holiday concerts and whatever performances we put on, we're trying to put on a very entertaining show and get through it with our schedules and all that sort of a thing. And it's not a bunch of adults sitting down in rooms for hours and hours and hours trying to get it as perfect as humanly possible. And I think there's a growth that happens in that. And also the fraternity of it all. You become closer as humans, and that makes you a better ensemble too.
I love what our president, Pat Herrick, said at the awards ceremony on Saturday night, where he was listing the brand new bands that came for the first time to NABBA, as well as the return of some quite legacy NABBA member bands that just hadn't been to the contest in a very, very long time, coming back to it. Both of those, I think, are really significant, you know, in terms of the strength of our organization. The fact that we can bring back some longtime members who hadn't been in a number of years, as well as attracting, you know, newly formed or newly competing for the first time. Both of those are really exciting.
Yeah, I think also in addition to that is that when you tack into, I know this is like a post-contest episode, but the reach of NABBA now, with the partnering we do with the regionals. Well, we had 39 bands at the championship, but in all the regionals that of bands participated, we have a reach of over 60 bands, 66 bands, I think, is what Pat counted up. So, you know, so the organization is reaching so many more bands just by, the idea that we're doing more than just running a contest, and making an actual effort to reach more bands, and it's very evident that we're doing that.
That's really cool. I think if we're to look to the future and talk about what we need to do next, is continue to maintain strong ties with our friends across the border in Canada, and just encourage them to come to our events. I know that they do when they can, and we missed them this year, and we'd love to see them back. So keep those doors open. And as well, we'd like to. We know that we have a number of NABBA bands, or even bands that exist but aren't yet members of the organization, especially in the western part of the U.S. And we'd love to see more of those folks come out. And I know it's a little bit more challenging for them to handle the travel and the time away. But the more that we can expand our reach in those directions, I think will be a good thing. So
I know that I joked with some people in the UK because when they go to their brass band competitions, it's like an hour away, an hour and a half, maybe. And you go out that day and you make friends with, some owner of some pub or something and hang out in the pub until it's your turn to play. And then you go, and then afterwards you go back to the pub and have a few drinks and hang out and listen and wait for the awards, and then you go home.
Right.
and so I shocked a few people when I told them that I think San Francisco Brass Band, they always have a few members who drive the percussion and tuba truck, and it takes 3 days, not 3 hours, but 3 days.
Yeah.
I think they left Monday. I think they
That's
left
crazy.
Monday.
That's crazy. Well, kudos to them for having the commitment to, that band was formed with the express intent of making NABBA appearances an annual thing. And that takes a huge commitment on everybody's part. So I'm really, really happy to see them not only continuing to come, but being so successful. I mean, what a great story. I mean, winning
Yeah.
second section last year, and now bumping up to first section, premiering a commission. It wasn't a commission, but it was a new, a really, really new work.
Yeah.
That's super exciting.
Yeah.
I'm excited. My
ahead.
state is stealing their director.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's moving to Miami. Are you
He's
guys
moving
to Miami,
He's moving
yeah.
to Miami.
Yeah.
Craig's coming in. So that'll be nice to have him in the state for sure.
Are you actually going to steal him?
Well, and just keep in mind, Miami's also 5 hours away from me, so I'm not. But there's a couple bands down in South Florida that might be lucky enough to get him involved.
He's already talking about starting a brass band, so there might be another brass band in Florida sometime soon. So that would be cool. Also, they were super excited that we gave them a shout out in the last episode. So here's your shout out, San Francisco Brass Band. There you go.
Well, they certainly deserve it. That, man, what a good band, and what progress they made since their first NABBA. It's like, the advancements that you can make in just 2 years, just like Aaron's band has.
I mentioned that we were dead last. I mean, they were the band right above us, like in that same contest, and then they would go win it, hop sections, win it, and talk about progress, wild. They did. I don't even think they believed it. You saw them in the hallway afterwards, and they're just like, "What happened? What? Hold on."
It's pretty cool, So they're definitely on a high right now.
It's so hard. Okay, and I maybe we can talk about this a little bit. I don't know. It's so hard. I'm kind of thankful. So this was my last NABBA on the board, at least for the time being. Just a lot of life changes coming up that I have to be aware of, and one of the things about like running a band and being a competitor and being a NABBA board person, and it's so hard to just not be a fan of everyone involved in the whole thing, and like not just want to be in the concert hall constantly and just like talking shop and listening to groups and like, oh, who's that flugel player? I've never seen them before. That sounded really good. And like do the whole thing and just become and just nerd out about it. And it's so hard when I'm not going to complain about this in front of, Mark and Tony, but when you have to like work and do things and you can't involve yourself in those sorts of things. And plus you're like doing your own band stuff. It's such a cool weekend when you get the opportunity to just sit down and participate as an audience member. And it's so hard to like be a cutthroat competitor when like the playing's so good, and it's a lot of fun.
100%. That is far and away, in my opinion, the best part of the weekend. And I'm super jealous, Aaron, that you get to go back to being a super fan, because that's the one. Really, the only regret that I have about being a board member is that I don't get to just sit in the hall and listen to bands, and that is such a cool experience, and it's really unique to our part of the world that players from other bands will sit in a hall and listen and appreciate and support their the people who are competing against them, but it's at the end of the day, it's all about the quality of the performance and appreciating the musicianship and the artistry, and it's such a great time. I don't know when I'll be able to get back to doing that, sitting in the hall, but
you're also in like band purgatory in that green room the whole time because you're in between both halls. So you're getting the sounds of all of the bands, literally all the bands playing, but you cannot participate. It's like the unreachable cookie jar at all times.
There are a few people that are sacrificing a lot. They do not get to participate in NABBA the way everybody else has. I can't even remember the last time I got to actually enjoy a NABBA. Not saying that, the sacrifices of pulling it off and making it happen isn't enjoyable, because there's a different level of satisfaction in that, but there's definitely a sacrifice that comes into play when you're trying to make sure the whole thing happens, and when you're trying to solve everybody else's problems so that they have a great experience there. And there's very few performances that I got to hear in its entirety, because it's like go in and listen to a few minutes backstage and then leave and solve something and then come back, so you don't get to really see all of it, but you see snippets of enough snippets of it to appreciate how good it really is and how valuable it is.
I think brass banding is an exercise in self-denial for just about anybody who's in it, right? Because you spend your life learning an instrument or a family of instruments, and then suddenly, unless you're for everybody, at the very least, you have to learn a new clef, and quite possibly a whole different instrument, embouchure, mouthpiece, everything. The percussionists are the only ones who have it, quote unquote, easy, because they're just still doing their thing. But percussionists will tell you that's some of the most challenging and fun music that they get to play in any setting, right? But it's time away from your family, it's time away from your friends, it's travel, it's expense, acquiring a new skill set, a new set of ears, all of that stuff that we do to try to make this art. It's anybody who does it, it's a huge investment and a sacrifice, I think. So
yeah. I think that you mentioned something interesting, because it's the families also that contribute so much to allowing us to do these things. I remembered at Dublin Festival of Brass, I had a medical situation. My pancreas decided to stop working. And so, yeah, I had pancreatitis and it was not so bad that I couldn't play, but it was quite painful. So I remember I played very well, and afterwards Tim Jameson said, "How did you play so well?" And I said, "Well, because when we saw what had to be done, my husband stepped in and took everything for the entire weekend. He took everything so that all I had to do was perform with Dublin Silver and conduct the youth. Other than that, everything was taken care of. And at least with our band, at our final like picnic thing at the end of the year, we always we thank the families, and it's not unusual for Tim to send out thank you cards to family members in the mail, to thank them for supporting us, because I think, you know, there is that support that our family members do, you know, in NABBA prep. We know that I am going to be gone. I'm going to be gone a lot. And you know, we have the youth brass band set up right after Dublin Silver. And then I was working with, we got a brand new baritone player who hadn't played in a brass band, and he was solo baritone. So I would teach a baritone lesson and then have 2.5 hours of Dublin Silver rehearsal, and then have 2.5 hours of youth band rehearsal, and just not be home all of Sunday.
Wow. That's crazy. You know, you make a really good point, Amy, about the involvement of our families, and what a toll, not a toll maybe is the wrong word, but it is definitely, it has a very definite impact on people's home lives, all of the time and energy that they give to brass banding. One of my bands is kind of, I mean, we have sort of a running joke in our band that the number of people who have met and married as members of our band is kind of crazy. I think we're at 4, possibly even 5 couples that have
Oh,
met
wow.
and married in the band. And those
I want
folks
to go on tour with your band.
Is that how a soprano gets made? When a euphonium and a flugel love each other very much?
No comment. No comment. But those folks are you know, starting to have families now, and it's become a real decision point for them. How are we, both of us, both parents who are, you know, bona fide, full-fledged members of the band, how are they going to both keep coming to band when they've got young kids at home? And we've had conversations. We haven't made any definite plans yet, but we've had conversations about actually arranging for childcare at rehearsals so that parents can bring their kids.
I think it's a great discussion to have.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, I'm genuinely, I'm thinking about recruiting one of my studio students at the university and just like, hey, if we float you like a certain amount per kid, can you just hang out? Because we rehearse in a middle school. I'm like, hey, can you just hang out in the cafeteria with them and like color? I don't know, just whatever they need to do, so I can have my flugelhorn player for the night.
Yeah, because we trade back and forth with we have a tuba player and a cornet player, and they have I believe 4-year-old, and he frequently hangs out at rehearsal, and so I think that it's a reasonable idea, and I also think the International Women's Brass Conference has started. At least when I hosted, we had a list of like approved babysitters and stuff, so that when you're at the conference, if you have your kid with you and you need a babysitter for a time, these are people who are trusted, who are vetted. You know, here are their rates. I think it would be a great thing for even at NABBA, because I see some people coming with their kids now, because we have so many couples who both members are in the band, to have like a vetted list of maybe like you know, some, maybe the local band has somebody has a teenager or college student, you know, who would like to pick up some babysitting time, so that those people who are bringing their kids have an option. Because I think it used to be, at least when I was in the UK and before, it used to be assumed that there were banders' wives, who the wives were at home, and it was the guy who was in the ensemble. But increasingly, as you said, Mark, it's both both members of the couple are in the ensemble. And childcare, has to be figured out.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah. I want to pivot back to
Yeah.
so the contest a little bit, that talking about how supportive everybody is and listening to the other bands and things like that, which isn't necessarily the same vibe that you get at other competitions. There were some people that I talked to and got some feedback from the United Kingdom that definitely noticed, especially at the award ceremony, the vibe of support that all the bands, seem to pass around to each other through that. It's like, it's not even, that it's subversive or anything. It's real. And it's noticeable about how supportive everybody is. And that's something that, Mark and I have talked about a little bit, about how it didn't used to be like this, or at least not as strongly as it is now. And that's something that I think both Mark and I will both admit that we're proud of, is that, it's a real, coming together of people who love the same thing, rather than something where they're really fighting against each other.
Yeah. After the competition, a whole bunch of bands were hanging out together, and I remember San Francisco mentioned, I mentioned I wanted to hang out with some of them, and the Dublin people, with us being in the same section, the San Francisco people were like, "Is that okay?" And the Dublin people were like, "Totally, like we all want to hang out."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, okay." And so I think it was like 4 or 5 bands all kind of mingling, and it doesn't matter,
Right.
we're all friends, and it really is a unique situation to NABBA. I remember competitions in the UK. It had a little bit of a different vibe. And I think bands didn't really go in and listen to each other nearly as much. And it was more like you put in your time on the stage, and then you disappear and wait for the results. And I really like the vibe that we're promoting here in the US, and it's cool.
There's another thing that's actually a byproduct of having the free live stream, is that I think it's hurting people from going. People don't go into the hall and listen. A lot of people in Huntsville listening to the live stream, it gives them the opportunity to do other things, and still keep involved with it. But I think it's definitely having an effect on putting people in the hall.
It's it's so interesting because JMU went and made history and did what they did. And listen, of course, I'm alumni, so I have friends who are in that group who are posting the snippet of like the last, because it's every test piece ever, right? The most exciting part of it is the last 60 seconds. And so they're posting the last, that last little bit of it. And it's so interesting because as phenomenal as of a production as the live stream is, it really is it's a great job. It just cannot, and I think that this is a very special thing with the brass band specifically, is it cannot give you the rumble of the bass drum rolling. It cannot give you just how big that crescendo is, the impact of the crowd being there, the energy in the room. And like, and it's both like, we as music teachers a lot of times are really bad about being like, yeah, you need to go to live music for like the vibe. No, like literally you cannot feel the way those last 60 seconds are of any test piece, plus the crowd impact and the vibe and everything else. And it's very specific to brass band. And so like, yeah, it's a great resource, and I'm glad it has it. And also I'm glad that like my Meemaw can watch us play and all that sort of a thing, because she ain't going to make the trip. But then also, going into the hall, I've been watching these clips on, and it's just like, man, that's not how it, like, it's cool, but that's not what it felt like. I was there, and it's not what it felt like.
Yeah, you definitely get a different sense when you are in the room, when the sound waves are put into motion. It's completely different, that microphones can't replicate at all. And a brass band picks that up more than anything. I remember when we hosted the Quarry band here, I was going out to schools recruiting, band programs to send their students to that concert. And it was like, and you play a video of Corey Band doing Enter the Galaxies. And I'm like, this is amazing. Listen to how precise that is. I was like, but you really won't get it until you're sitting in the room with them on stage and you hear how soft they play. And then 4 seconds later, you hear how loud they play and the contrast between the two. And when all of that is in your face and in motion, and those sound waves are bouncing around that hall, it's a completely different experience. Live music cannot be replicated on any kind of recording whatsoever. So, it's interesting that it has, it is having that effect. It's not a criticism of it. I think that, that's part of the reason we have it. Like everybody that goes to NABBA goes there, with their own experience at their own discretion. So if they want to listen to a couple of bands, then go out to eat with their bandmates, which is something that bandmates really rarely have the chance to do, because so many band people are like, we go to rehearsal from 7 to 9 and then we go home. And they don't really get to spend social time with their band people because of the rigorous day-to-day life that they have to go. And then you get a weekend away and you're like, no, let's go have dinner, but we want to go hear bands. Yeah, but we got this live stream right here, so we can do both. And I think it's a really good, good addition to it as well.
And I think it's great to make it available back at home. I know my kids watched. They think that I'm a celebrity because they watch me on TV. My 7-year-old gave me a score of 75% for my St. James solo.
Not nearly high enough.
And
your kid's got
Dave Thornton,
tough standard.
Dave Thornton commented, I posted on Facebook, and Dave Thornton commented, and he said, well, that's like honors in the UK. And it's like 6 points above flunking in the US. But I sent the live stream link to my students. I sent it to the youth brass band so that they could listen. And I know that they tuned in because they mentioned aspects of the performance and stuff. So how cool is it that these kids who haven't come to NABBA yet can kind of experience some of it so easily without subscribing to something and then, having to remember to cancel it a month later or whatever.
That was the whole idea behind it, is just to make it all more accessible.
I teach I run a community college band on Monday nights. And I happened to mention in rehearsal during NABBA week that I would be traveling to Alabama that weekend for a band competition. And a couple of members came up to me after rehearsal and they said, oh, you should, is it going to be live streamed? And I said, actually it is. And they said, you should send us the links so we can watch. And I was like, okay. So I sent out the links to my band, and I just figured, 1 or 2 of them would watch. I think maybe like 20 of them all watched performances. And they were like, that was so cool. I've never experienced something like that. I've never heard pieces like that or heard an ensemble like that, which is great. We're
like, what are you doing on Wednesday night?
Yeah, right. Right. Exactly. But yeah, I wasn't expecting that. And it was really, really cool that some new folks found the art form.
Pete Rose talks about, how hitting is so easy in the major leagues. Where else can you, fail 75% of the time and be a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right.
So 75% is not bad, Amy.
Thanks. That's really comforting. Thanks. He does want to practice baritone more this summer because he saw the live stream, he saw Mommy on TV, he saw all these bands, and so he's ready to go. He's ready to take lessons, and I have finally convinced him that I actually do know some things.
That is a very short window of time where you get to enjoy your child being convinced of that fact.
I tried to teach him piano, and he would not take lessons from me, and so we had to go and pay for someone else to teach him piano. So he is actually convinced that I know something about music for at least the next few years. And yeah, it's fun times.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah.
So Aaron, is there anything else you experienced this weekend that you want to, you seem to have a more generalized view of the competition because you're not stuck in the weeds like Mark and I are.
Yeah, and that's commending. I was looking at it because last year, I was doing the offstage broadcasting stuff, so I was pretty much, Mark didn't get to use me for whatever purposes he needed, and and so for this one, I really got to see how you schedule, Mark, and just the thoughtfulness of like, hey, this person's probably gonna, like I looked across the board and like the thoughtfulness of like, oh, this person's probably gonna have to eat at some point, or like their band has a rehearsal, and not just being like, okay, here's 15 minutes before your rehearsal, figure it out, but like giving a significant block so you can get a snack or change or whatever. Because that was built in, and I do think that there was the considerations for stuff like that. That's why I was blessed to be able to do that as a band organizer and as somebody on the board. Like I still made and did all my responsibilities and all that stuff, but was still able to go and see what I needed to see. I think the only thing I missed out on is somebody tried to message me right when I sat down for the UF brass band because they went at dawn. My dumb self sat literally dead center. I was like, there's no way I can get out without just making a racket. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, it was really cool to see a lot of I think the primary thing that was neat was I haven't really had an opportunity to sit inside of the third section very much. So it was really cool to see. I think one of the best parts about the contest, having been in the Southeast for the past few years, is the Southeast is like this new grounds for brass band, but it's always had tons of talent. Just, the personnel lists are crazy up there in terms of like who's in these bands, but learning the genre and what it takes and all that sort of a thing. And so seeing bands like UF come in and, being a proud little alumni, I was a founding member of that band, and to see how far they've come in such a short amount of time. Cherry Blossom not existing 6 months ago and then taking third. Yeah, there's a lot of like really cool stuff happening. They got second. Ooh, yeah, my bad. Yeah. So, but still, like, didn't exist in October, and here they are. So that was really cool, genuinely, to get to see that and all the new people.
Did you see how close Florida was from placing?
Wasn't it like 0.5 or something ridiculous like that?
0.5.
0.5, yeah.
Wow.
there's like one tenor horn player who chipped a note who's like, I'm sorry, it's my fault.
It's your fault.
It's all me.
Did they? I did not, because they were so early in the morning and I was off campus at a rehearsal. I did not get to hear their performance or interact with them at all. Did you get a sense that they had a good experience, Aaron?
Oh yeah, they had a blast.
That's great.
And Danielle's a mentor of mine and a good friend, and you leading it's I think we all do this, right? We all complain about our band and the lovable idiots that we all have, and then we play and it's that proud feeling washes over us and we forget that like we had to do stuff like unload the percussion truck entirely by ourselves, which is something Danielle had to do, and stuff like that because our her 19-year-olds didn't know where to go and stuff like that. But no, they had a great time. And I have if I may gush a little bit, I had their solo baritone was a student of mine since 6th grade. And this is his first year at the university. And I'm in contest mode. I'm looking and I'm like adjudicating myself a little bit. And I'm being nosy and I'm seeing how things are going. And I'm in an angle where I actually can't, unless I look for that person, I can't see that he was there. And I forgot. And they're in their test piece. It escapes me right now, but there's a gorgeous, pretty solo baritone solo.
Oh, it was the Imogen Holst piece.
Yeah.
Traveler. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's this gorgeous solo baritone solo. And I'm just like, oh, they sound really good. Who is that? And then I get nosy, right? And then I go and look, and I'm like, oh, it's Nico, this kid I've known since, he literally 2 weeks after picking up the instrument, right, on euphonium, and we got him to UF and stuff, and just composing myself was not happening. It just wept, just like of pride and just also how good he sounded and stuff like that. It was it was that moment right there was worth the entire weekend for me.
Yeah. I had a very similar experience to that too with the Watson brass band. The lead E flat bass player is a student that I've had since, he was in his proverbial tuba diapers in 7th grade, and they played the Oliver Waseby, the Raid, which has a massive E flat bass solo in there. And he just slaughtered it. I mean, he was so good, and it's just like, wow. It was really awesome to hear that and hear him succeed and play so well.
Okay, I'm going to share my moment because it seems like that's what we're doing. So I usually can't watch Atlantic without bawling my eyes out. So the second night I was in the hall and I listened to Joe Sino, who was my student at Rowan, who's now solo youth, play his solo and nail it after having a few splits the day before. He just nailed it, and I knew that he needed that. So I'm just bawling. I'm bawling, and then I leave after Atlantic plays, and I hear Amy, and I was like, what? And it was a student who started in the Atlantic Youth Brass Band, and she plays in Colorado now.
Wow.
and so I was just like, I was just totally just, I was bawling. I just couldn't handle like the combination of those two moments right next to each other. It was a really cool moment just to see one of the students that we got started in the Atlantic Youth Brass Band going on and you know, continuing on, even though she had moved and was in a totally different part of her life now. So it was a really cool moment.
Well, it's kind of it, isn't it? Because like I cracked open the because I was the check-in person for a couple of the bands the second night of championship section, right? So I had Five Lakes, Central Florida, and who was the other one I had? I had another band. Oh, Fountain City. And so I had those three bands, right? And like, of course, having played with them, I knew a ton of BBCF people. But then also like watching people walk up for Five Lakes, I'm like, oh, here's this person, here's this person, here's this person. Like without them having to tell me, I just know who they are. Same thing with Fountain City. And then I was like, oh, then when I went down and started watching once my duty was done, and I crack open the program and I go through championship section, I'm like, I don't know what the whole band, but I know individuals in this entire band, like in this entire section. And then I go to first section, I'm like, same thing, almost every band I know somebody, and copy and paste that realization through every single section across the board. And I think that's something really special, not only about you, because we're in like brass band media, doing this thing, so we interact with people all the time and we know people, but also just like being involved in NABBA for as long as we have, but also just like the way North America is, it's so hard, I think, to go back to the whole like competing but not being, or being competitive but not competing in a lot of ways. I think that goes to it. It's so hard for me to like. One of the guys in my wedding party was in Massanutten, and they beat us. Yeah. Oh no, how can I not be proud of that? You know what I mean? Right, like it's so hard to, and I think that's something, even, we have friends on Facebook that we see for the first time ever when we go to this event, and like we know what bands they are. And when I'm moving with my band people who have never been to a NABBA, I'm like, oh, that's this person. They used to play with this band. Now they play with this band. They teach here. Like, and you're giving these bios of these people that you didn't even realize was information you had back here. And that's the weekend goes, and that's the fun part of it, isn't it?
I had actually a really fantastic experience conducting Milwaukee on Saturday afternoon in their choice piece performance. The test piece had not gone especially well for us the day before, which was disappointing for all of us because I felt like we were really well prepared on that piece. But it was one of those contest experiences where I think nerves got the better of us, and we just didn't have our best run, and that will happen. It's that band's first time back at NABBA in 5 years. They haven't been since 2019. So it was, I had to remind myself that, for those players, it was for a lot of them, it was a brand new experience. And even for the ones that had been before, it had been a long time since they had done it. So going into Saturday, I wanted everybody to, just relax, have a great experience, not get too wrapped up in all the details. And if something bad happens, just move on, get to the next moment, stay present. And most of all, just, give a performance that connects with your audience, with the people that are out there listening to you, tell the story of this piece. And you know, we went out there, and within the first like minute of the piece, I just had one of those experiences that so rarely happens as a conductor, where you go, where is this coming from? What is happening right now? Who are you people?
This is going very well.
This is going really well. You know, as when you're preparing a band for contest, you know, a good goal that you set for yourself is that when you go out on the contest stage, you play at least as well as your best rehearsal, right? And if you can somehow eke out just a marginal improvement over your best rehearsal, wow, that's a huge win, right? It's so rare that your band walks out on stage and they just are, they found like turbo boost mode, you know. They found the secret coin in the, you know, in the video game, and they like wham, and it was crazy. They were just so on, and they could tell probably because I couldn't stop smiling as I was conducting them, but you know, they could tell that their performance was really something special. And it you know, we came back after the weekend. We finished in seventh out of a field of 14 bands, which is, you know, that's not really here or there. It you know, probably wasn't our goal, you know, as a finish, but when you're competing against 14 bands, I mean, everything's up for grabs, right? And none of that mattered. You know, we came home, we had our regular rehearsal on Tuesday night, and we spent the first half hour of the night just kind of rehashing our experiences and what a great feeling that was coming off the stage, and how we knew that we just had absolutely killed that piece. And you know, it was so satisfying and so rewarding for those players, and especially the ones who had never done it before. You know, and they were going, I get it now. Now I understand, you know, it was really cool. So I'm so thankful that I got to have that experience with them this year.
Yeah, it's funny that in the second section, places 4, 5, and 6, or 5, 6, and 7 were within 0.4 of a point.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
it was a tight section, you know.
It could have gone any way, you
Yeah.
know. It was crazy. So one of the things that I did just prior to the contest was start to lift the lid off the adjudication thing. I sent an article to Four Bars Rest, and Ewan Fox kind of changed the tone of it and made it into an interview, which never actually happened. He just took the article that I wrote and changed the format of it to be an interview. And I was
Okay.
like, cool, this was great. You know, but one of the things that was promised in that was to kind of lift the curtain behind the adjudication process. So the next couple of episodes I signed us up for, without really asking you guys. You know, but hopefully
I think you asked. And then somehow that Four Bars Rest article showed up like 2 hours later, and I was like, this is suspicious timing.
Yeah, I 100% did that without asking. If Ewan Fox would have gotten that sooner. You know,
Well, I'm looking forward to those episodes because I think it will be really valuable for our members to be able to understand a little bit more about our philosophy and our processes when it comes to judging. So
yeah, and I think it's going to be, you know, really so hopefully a lot of people spread the word around and they'll start to listen to it. It's not going to start off as like a breakdown of what happened at NABBA this year. I think the first episode we're going to talk about the actual process of it. You know, so if you listen to that, you'll understand about, you know, everything that's involved in how we get to the adjudication process. And then we'll spend some more episodes after that, kind of getting into some more nitty gritty to it. If people have any questions they want us to ask, or anything that they think is happening and they're not sure, you know, they should send in the questions, you know, so that we can cover those topics. So that, you know, like if anybody saw the recap sheet, I think the thing you would say is that it's transparent. You know, there is no question as to what's going on in the recap. in terms of, what were the judges thinking. They're saying what they're thinking, but it's very transparent. And in the brass band world, you never have that kind of transparency. In most competitions, the judges come out of it unified in what they're saying about the placement of the bands, and our system is a little bit different than that. So to figure out how we get to that, we're going to lift the curtain up and say, this is how we get to that. And I think it'll be a fascinating discussion. And at the end of the day, it will eventually help bands know how to prepare to go into the competition arena. So it's going to be if you know what's going on, then you'll know how to do it. And we spent 3 years working on this already, and we still have more to do to refine it. But we're getting great feedback from our adjudicators. They're starting to buy into what we're doing and learning how to use it. So it's going to be a fascinating series. So hopefully, everybody will tune in and start to understand how this is all going. So there's an invite. Check out the next couple of episodes.
I mean, check out all of our episodes, but the next few too.
Every single one. The worst thing you can do too is the worst thing you can do is start at episode 1. Don't do that. Go work backwards.
Episode 1 is. Yeah.
That's every podcast. It takes a while to figure it out. We're almost at 50. Like we're closer to 50 than we are to 1. That's for sure. And we're not consistent, so that's actually wildly impressive that we're able to do that.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say thank you to guys for allowing me to sign us up to go through this process, because, I don't think there is any more topic that's more controversial than adjudication in the brass band world right now.
Oh no, content I don't have to think about. Say it ain't so.
You might have to think about it, but you might have to deal with the repercussions of discussing it. The third rail of brass banding. So we're gonna
listen.
get into
if me trying to get the question of the day and offering up terrible questions of the day every time, and that not leading to comments, I don't know what will. So.
Yeah. The question of the day: who should have won?
Oh God! Oh God!
Oh no!
And
Battle Creek.
That's the late night
Battle Creek.
Battle Creek. That's funny.
Well, thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
I think your last episode from the pre-NABBA just went live
last night.
How timely.
A little behind
5-6 weeks ago. Sorry.
It wasn't that far. It was only like 2 weeks. So
okay, good. Yeah, sorry.
We're slightly busy.
No.
Yeah, but this one will go up soon, right, Aaron?
No. Yep. I'll say I'm not. No promises, but the idea is yes. All right. Bye, folks. I'm clicking the button.